The tabletop takeaway.
Game mechanics on display.
3 designers share the stage.
Pick a genre and we'll play.
The tabletop takeaway.
Welcome back to the Tabletop Takeaway. I'm Trevor Muller-Hagel.
I'm Ananda.
And I'm Charlie McCarran.
And today starts our first day going into our journey of word association games, starting with Codenames. Codenames is a very popular game. If you haven't heard of it, it's very easy and fun to play. Very good for getting into word association games in general. Basically, how it works is you're going to have a number of cards set up in a grid on a table that represent a word. You're going to have 2 teams with their spy masters on each side that knows what the secret words are for their team. And then they're going to be able to give clues to their team members to make sure they select their cards in the table. The hard part is that there's one card or one space that is, what's the actual term for it? It's
the assassin.
The assassin. So if they choose that card, your team loses automatically. Otherwise, if you get all of your cards before the other team, your team wins. Pretty easy. The general flow is that the spy master will say a word. So like blue and then a number like 3. And so they'll look for 3 cards that have blue in common on the board. If they ever choose one that is not their team's card, they have to stop immediately. But they are able to go over their number by 1. So they could go up to 4 if there is a previous clue that they want to guess on. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah. That's the thing with these word association games. They're like really easy to explain usually, and you can start playing right away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very quick to the table, very quick to start going.
Yeah.
But then you start racking your head about how do you interact with these rules in a way that is most advantageous for your team or disadvantageous for the other team.
Well, and I will say, so the first thing about Codenames is when you guess the wrong word. I mean, you already mentioned the assassin, right?
Right.
So, if you guess the assassin, then your team just instantly loses. So,
right, which is real bad.
Right. So the spy masters need to avoid giving a clue that points to the assassin, but they also want to avoid giving clues that point to the other team's card, because if you touch one of the other team's cards, it's revealed for them.
Right.
So it counts as a point. Right. Which means when you're giving clues, you're not just thinking about, okay, what word can I use that will make people guess our words? You're also trying to think, okay, well, this is what the other team wants to guess. What words can I pick that will not make them think of those? And sometimes those other words are very close to your team's words, and things get a little bit tricky.
Yeah. And so kind of looking at this from a more design lens, you want to create moments of tension for the teams, right? Because this is also a team game. We played actually with 3 players just now, which I had never done with Codenames. But I actually had a good time. I was the sole spy, and Charlie and Ananda were the spy masters.
Yeah. Yep. So you were guessing after both of us gave clues.
Right. Which I didn't think it would work that way. But it was actually like really interesting to have 2 sets of clues in my head and just try to be honest about, fulfilling my role to each team individually.
Right.
It was very interesting.
Right. And of course, normally you'd have spies for each team.
Right.
And the game, once you're above 4 players, what happens is you have a bunch of players who are all spies on the same team. And but it's still fun. It's not, sometimes when you have, okay, these 2 players are on a team, it's just like, okay, well, it doesn't really work. But here it does kind of work because, they need to talk through their thinking on why a certain word it does or doesn't fit the clue.
Which can be really funny as the spy master, like listening to them trying to come up with their reasoning behind all these clues. Like that's part of the fun of these games too, I think.
And I was very quiet in how I was actually like my thought process. And I wouldn't like say, maybe it would be grass because grass is pointy. I don't want to say grass though. Because I don't. That was one of Charlie's clues for me. And so it's hard for me personally to have that dialogue when I'm by myself. But a lot of people do that kind of thinking out loud to kind of walk themselves through it. And when you're in a group, you have to do it because you can't just like be the like, okay, well, I'm going to choose things. Like, no, let's talk about it. We have to make this a discussion, and creating opportunity for people to engage with each other is about, what games are about.
Yes, well, the other aspect is that if you're on a team with your spy master, talking through, even if it's just you and them, talking through your thought process is quite helpful for them,
Right?
So that they understand what clues to give you in the future,
Right.
Now, thinking about the design of the game a little bit, the fact that you can guess one more, I really like that you can guess one more word than whatever the clue you're given is.
Yeah.
I think it having that does a couple of things. Excuse me. First of all, it lets players push their luck if they want to.
Oh yeah.
Now, of course, if it's the first clue of the game and you're given like a 3 and you guess all 3 correctly, you probably should not guess a 4th.
Yeah,
I have seen people do that.
Throwing it out there. Well, I mean, I guess if you don't know if you actually guessed one that was part of the original clue, but that would be weird to guess that and not the one that you knew was right.
I mean, yeah, there's no way to know if when you guess correctly, the spy master does not tell you, oh, that's right. You don't know if it was actually intentional or not.
Right.
And actually, Charlie, in the game, I didn't mention this before, but in the game we played, Trevor, in the game that we played, one of the ones that you guessed, mint,
Yeah.
was actually not. I didn't intend for you to guess that, but but it
With
turned
teeth?
out,
It's just
Oh.
yeah, but it
brush, mouth, and mint toothpaste.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it
that's
worked out
made
really
sense.
well.
Yeah.
But
I
you,
think-
but you didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I actually met the guy who made the word list for Codenames.
Oh, cool.
Jason Holt. He came to a protospiel in Minnesota one time.
Oh, sweet.
I think he's from Montana. But anyways,
I'm
so
from
he's
Montana.
whoa.
Oh.
We gotta connect you guys. I think, yeah, he was talking about like making this word list. He does all the rules for Czech Games Edition.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Vlada Travadl. So he was working on this Codenames list, and like I'm pretty sure he was saying his thought process was like words that have double meanings are usually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like mint as the
minty fresh,
fresh
minting
or
money.
mint money.
Right.
Keeping them
Mint
ambiguous
condition.
enough. Yeah.
That makes sense.
And it's funny because when he was talking about going into Codenames duet, like he felt like he had used the best words for Codenames, but there's a lot of words, so
There are a lot of words
figured
out
There's
there.
a lot of words.
I will say though, this is a little tangent, but Codenames duet maybe has harder words in it.
Oh,
in some
interesting.
ways.
Because it's. I actually have not played Codenames Duet.
I don't know
Because
if
all the
it's-
good ones were used up.
They were used up, yeah. But yeah, these games are so much about the word lists, more than I think you would think when
Yeah.
you're designing, where it's like, oh yeah, you could just AI generate this list,
Yeah.
and that sort of works, but not for every game, I think.
Well, yeah. I mean, coming up with a good word list is really important. I have a game about rhyming, and when I was coming up with words for that game, I went and researched like the sounds that occur most frequently. And then just got some words for each of those sounds, so it'd be easier for people to make rhymes.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, so I think whenever you're doing something around language, it is really important to figure out.
To curate what you're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Not to just Google, give me 50 random words. That's I mean that'll get you 50 words, but they won't necessarily work well. for you.
Fibonacci. Okay.
Yeah. Although I will say I have used ChatGPT for one of my games to generate word lists in a specific way that they had to be like related in a circular fashion to each other.
Oh, interesting.
And that would have taken me, I don't even know how many
Yeah.
hours.
Years.
But now it's like I still have to curate it because like it's not.
Right.
Like,
it's not perfect. You
gonna-
still have to refine it and make sure that it all makes sense. And
Well, Yeah, so all of these games where the content is just a bunch of words. I mean, traditionally people have chosen those words, and that's been sort of the game design. Mm-hmm. But I guess in the age of this is very off topic. I mean,
maybe not though.
In the age of AI, like if you can just go and ask Chat GPT for a bunch of words fitting a certain criterion, then I guess. I don't know.
I guess what are we doing here at all, guys? I don't know.
Oh man, it's getting existential.
Well, just like the topic of AI art in games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can sort of tell when the art is AI, but I don't. There's no way to tell. I don't think if the words are AI curated.
That would be nearly impossible to tell.
Yeah.
I mean, how many words are copied from the dictionary into a game? Probably all of them.
Anyways,
right. Well,
yeah,
computers are going to take over, and we'll have to make our own types of games.
That's why it's all the more important to have a good core structure to your design.
Hey, thanks, Trevor.
Okay, yeah,
that's exactly. So
yeah, pulling things back to Codenames.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to start with my takeaway, which I don't know if I've ever done that, which is very exciting for me. And my takeaway is going to revolve around the assassin specifically. Having a point of failure that keeps you from just doing the obvious, right? And I think all of the games have this to some extent. But like, just being able to create this, okay, what is the perfect word that's going to get me exactly the most helpful without endangering us? And so adding that twist in there, I think, is a really important thing.
Yeah, and beyond the assassin, also the fact that you can expose your opponent's spies as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for having two different end conditions in a game in general, because in Codenames, you can get very far ahead of the other team. Like if your team has like just 2 clues left, and their team has 5 clues left, I mean, it's going to be very difficult for them to narrow that gap.
Oh, for sure.
But on the other hand, if you get too greedy, you might hit the assassin or you might hit their spy. So it keeps things interesting. So, even if it looks like one team is way ahead, they might still hit the assassin and lose, or hit one of your team's spies.
Well, and even with our game right off the bat, Charlie had me guess 4 in a row, and Ananda had only guessed
5.
1. Was
Yeah,
it 5?
I tried 5 pointy.
Yeah.
It looked quite bad for me.
Yeah. And then Ananda actually won in the end.
Yeah.
By just, I think, 1 card.
Yeah.
2 cards.
Right.
Well, and you're consistently getting 3 clues.
Yeah. 3 names,
whereas
or numbers
I was
names.
stuck with
Words.
like my first 5 worked pretty well. The rest, I really had to use my brain to connect the dots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, I had to be creative too, because the assassin was on check, which is kind of money related, but I had a couple of other money related words as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Back to the assassin, like someone described it as the 8-ball, and that's like such a great association with pool, the 8-ball. If you get it in before your other ball's in, then you just lose. And I'm like thinking, in terms of game history, is pool really the predecessor for that idea? Because
what's the first
I don't know
notion of that?
Yeah, like if you just screw up this one thing, you just lose.
Checkers and chess are both pretty finite in their end condition.
Yeah, but it's a little bit different though. I mean, like with chess, the whole point is to checkmate the king,
right?
And yes, that ends the game, but it's not like there's like
it's a screw up point that ends it.
Yeah, it's a different thing,
right?
Yeah,
the 8-ball. Are there? Can you think of any other games that have that?
In terms of board games,
Minesweeper.
Oh yeah, you hit a mine,
then you die.
You just
But I mean, again, that's like. That is the primary loss condition.
Right,
though.
it's not a secondary.
Yeah.
Right, so like this is different because
It's a secondary thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a cool takeaway for more games could have that, because I didn't think about the catch-up catch-up feature as well. It's just like,
Well, and
anyone
as
could
more
win.
words are taken up, it increases the risk of hitting one that is bad.
yeah,
Especially if you have more of yours on the board,
yeah.
then you're more likely to hit someone just like probability wise,
Yeah.
not judging, player skill. But like, yeah, that's really interesting.
Well, in pool, like I'm curious about the development of when they thought, oh yeah, let's put an 8-ball in there, and maybe it was like the game was too easy or boring if like these very
it was
skilled
even.
players. I don't know.
I mean, the interesting thing is there is already sort of not quite at the level of the assassin, but already because you can hit your opponent's spies, which is very good for them and very bad for you.
Yeah.
You have something that's like the assassin, but not as extreme. So then I
Right.
guess
Varying degrees of quote unquote failure on your part.
right. So then, but then I guess then why do you need the assassin if you already have something that?
Well, it's a bigger risk, right? And that's why I like the assassin personally. Like, giving someone else a point, that doesn't feel great, but you're still playing. You haven't lost. You can still come back from that. But knowing there is an instant death out there,
You have to be very careful.
you have to be very careful.
Okay.
And like, if I hit a neutral, whatever, I can't keep guessing. If I hit yours, I can't keep guessing, and I gave you a point. That's also bad. But if I guess the assassin and I lose it for the entire team, obviously it's quick to reset up and play again, right?
Yeah.
Which is really important for that. But yeah.
Okay.
I think the part of it too is for the funny moment of the ending of the game. Just like,
Memorable moments.
Yeah.
When you have things that don't happen very often, but when they do, you can remember them.
Yeah.
yep.
Like Heroescape does that a lot with some of its abilities.
Yeah.
You have a 5%. Have I talked about this before?
About
About Heroescape.
Sounds like a D&D critical hit so far.
So Heroescape has a couple of mechanics. I think the funniest one is with how lava tiles work, which is that when a unit moves onto a lava tile, you roll a 20-sided die, and if you roll a 20, the unit survives. And it's just like, why do you have a rule for that? Like, it's going to die almost all the time. But it is true that,
But what if?
like, I know on at least one occasion. Probably just. I think it was just one occasion. One of my units did actually survive getting pushed into lava, so it can happen.
and you remembered it.
And you remember it, yes.
Yeah.
And I have other things from Heroescape that I remember just because they're super improbable but super memorable.
Yeah.
So I think that's.
Yeah, totally. And thinking about a word game like this, you wouldn't think, oh, there'd be these stories that you remember forever. But it's one of those games that, like, I still remember one game we played where our friend made a really silly clue and it hit the 8-ball, like, right away. I still remember that. And the other game I remember, even just hearing about, someone was like, guessed like 7 right off
Holy
the bat
cow.
or something like that. And it's like, oh, you feel pretty epic from both of those epic games from both of those.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
when you find those single thread, that one word that like will fit everything and not get you in trouble, like that's really cool. Even though it's randomized
Yeah.
setup and you don't know what's going to happen.
Or you push the boundaries by giving a clue that's very vague but hits a bunch of things.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
Just on the hopes that
Yeah.
they'll get it.
Especially if you have like, because you play with your friends, right? If you have inside references that someone remembers and knows you're a part of that and uses that as a reason to guess something, like that always feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually, this sort of leads into my takeaway about this game is that I didn't think of it so much in terms of push your luck before I started thinking about it this time playing it. Like, push your luck games I always think of as like, oh, we're
Double or nothing.
like, yeah, you're risking it to try to survive. But yeah, pushing your luck in this kind of a game is really interesting to me. And it makes me think like, how can you incorporate push your luck into other types
Yeah.
of games?
Kind of like Mystic Veil in a weird way, too. I don't know if
Oh,
you
yeah.
played Mystic
That's
Veil.
the push your luck.
so?
Because they have like you play until you have a number of what is it? It's I don't remember exactly the right
It's
wording.
like
Blight
spoils
or
or
spoiled,
blight or,
something like that. A number of those revealed, and technically the card on top of your deck is revealed. and that's not in play yet, but you can put it in play and reveal another one. But if you reveal another blight, then your whole thing is spoiled, and then you have to you have to skip your turn. But you get more resources, you get more actions, you get more stuff if you continue to push your luck. So like,
that's funny actually. Mystic Vale is my least favorite push your luck.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's a disconnect of me between this feeling of a deck builder that's usually like, oh, I did all this cool stuff.
You've built it up, yeah.
But conflicting with my personality that I want to push my luck and try something fun. And then I try it and it's an instant, oh, my turn was pointless.
Right. I've now done nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas I like push your luck like this where you feel clever about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also, in most push your luck games, the luck that's being pushed is completely random. I mean, you just draw things randomly until something bad happens or you decide to stop.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, I guess there's two aspects of, on both sides, there's aspects of pushing your luck, but it's not random. It's based on how well you think the other person understands your clue. So like on the clue giver's side of things, you're pushing your luck in terms of, okay, how big of a number can I name? Like how big of a number am I willing to name before it just gets too tenuous, the connection between these words. But also on the other side of things, the spies are thinking, okay, how many words can I guess before I should just stop?
Right. Yeah, that's cool. I did not think about the two-way.
Yeah. Both sides are pushing their luck. And
fascinating.
And it's not random. It's like, how well do I understand what this person is trying to tell me?
Or how well do I think they'll understand me this time with this word? Yeah.
Which
this gets at like why I think I love these games so much and people love them, is you're essentially like mind melding with other people and figuring out, there must be something really humanly satisfying too about how much do we think alike. And like if we're thinking alike, we get like probably a big rush of whatever
endorphin
chemical
whatever it is,
would be for like
oxytocin,
community building, bonding. I don't know.
I think that's oxytocin.
Happiness. You get a big dose of happiness when that happens.
Sure.
Yeah. Word association games are, they're about communication.
Yeah. What's your takeaway?
Right. Yes, my takeaway. So I think my takeaway would be allowing players to help their opponents accidentally in the way that you can. So I mean, there's three failure states. There's the assassin, there's civilians, which are just nothing happens, but you end your turn. And then there's you accidentally touch the other team's thing and give them a point instead, right? And your turn. And that's pretty neat because well, for one thing, it can keep the players more engaged, right? They're like, okay, well, we're just watching the other team take their turn. I mean, there is some information that's useful here because if I'm paying attention to what the opposing spy master is saying, I can try to guess what words they're trying to suggest, and then I can avoid those words.
Potentially, yeah.
But also, when the other team is picking, I'm hoping, I'm hoping that they're going to pick one of mine. And often what you'll see happen is you'll see people sort of taunting the other team very gently, like, "Oh, well, the clue is the clue is alive."
That dog is alive. You should probably pick
mares
dog.
are alive.
Yeah.
Mares are alive. Yeah.
Just giving that I
People
kind
do
of
that
forgot
a lot.
about
Holidays
that
you
piece
feel
of it.
lively, so that's alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good sign when your game can have those conversations and talking, because it is a dangerous part of the word guessing games often could be quiet games.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
very introspective or
yeah.
But yeah, so I guess I'd say if your game involves guessing something or trying to communicate, have a failure state that just straight up helps the other team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Awesome.
Should we leave it at that for Codenames? Or
I think that's good for me.
yeah. Cool. Well, join us next time for
Just one.
Boom, boom, boom.
Hey, thanks for listening to The Tabletop Takeaway. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. So please tell your friends and visit our website at thetabletoptakeaway.com, where you can suggest games and mechanics for us to cover next on the show.